Thank you a lot, dear colleagues. Hi to everyone. I hope you're doing well. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the organization of such an interesting event and for the invitation to take part in. Because I'm a person who has been studying Balkan for a long time, and I'm very pleased that the region is being to be more and more presented in the public discourse in Ukraine. At the same time, I believe that Ukrainian-Balkans relations and dialogue is important for raising the level of awareness of people in this region about Ukraine and Ukrainians. Such events and such platforms, such networks are, in my opinion, one of the best tools, as they give local people the opportunity to hear about Ukraine from Ukrainians, and it's a great job. And I will start to talk about another tool that helps break down walls between countries and create new alliances is the economy. And now I will try to share screen. At any time and under any circumstances, countries depend on each other in economic sense. Now is not a big economic partner in Western Balkan countries, but it could change, it have to change. Because if you look at map, we can see that Ukraine is actually very close to Western Balkans, just 400 or 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border to Serbia and Croatian border. Moreover, we have a lot of in common. Therefore, there are many preconditions for improving our military cooperation in various fields, including the economy, which is really very important. We have to offer a lot to each other in competitive prices and with fast transportation. But poor awareness of mutual export potential and high custom rates hinder effective and beneficial cooperation. Today, Ukrainians' last Balkan is Serbia. At the same time, both exports to Ukraine and imports from Ukraine make up less than 1% of Serbian trade turnover. Main articles of export, as you can see, is iron ore and ferrous metals, and import quite more diverse, but still it's not a big value. And trade between our countries could be greater, and there is a real business interest. But a free trade agreement has not been signed between Ukraine and Serbia. So goods are subject to even 20% for some group of goods. So after calculation, all those custom duties and transportation costs, goods that were much cheaper in Ukraine than in Serbia or in the other countries become more expensive. Negotiations of free trade agreements and custom duties have been ongoing for more than 10 years. But the parties obviously do not want to reach a consensus in this question, or maybe do not understand the profitable of this free trade agreement. We tried to convince the Serbian authorities to join the custom regime introduced by EU for goods from Ukraine during the war. Considering that Serbia is EU member, candidate for EU membership, but we have never gotten an answer. So we are still in the same place. And the second trading partner is Croatia. However, Ukraine makes up only 0.2% of Croatian trade over. As we could see, the structure of export and imports within our country is more diversified. And according to the legal framework between Ukraine and Croatia, is the spheres of trade and investment operates the regime of the most favored nation. So it is much more easier and profitable to trade under this condition. And in my opinion, Croatia is a good example of a country that saw the prospects of cooperation with Ukraine. On the graph, we can see the growth of trade between our countries. In the recent years, Croatian exporters have become interested in Ukrainian. Such a big country is a chance for Croatian producers. So last year's Croatian prosciutto, sausages, canned fish, wine, olive oil, and even potatoes have appeared on Ukrainian supermarkets. As well as in Croatian supermarkets, it's possible to find such unexpected products from Ukraine as macaroni, for example. During the war, after Croatian agricultural producers, Croatian manufacturers of military uniforms become extremely interested in entering Ukrainian market. For example, one of the Croatian company plans to develop a series of military helmets for Ukrainian army. So different forms of economical cooperation is possible. The next trade partner is North Macedonia. Ukraine is for the North Macedonia, and in 2021, Ukraine ranked 21st place among about 180 trade partners of Macedonia. But still, the main articles of export to Macedonia is ferrous metals. Trade and economic cooperation between Ukraine and the Republic of North Macedonia is carried out with the framework of free trade agreement, which was signed in 2001. The trade conditions are much more favorable than with another Western Balkan countries. The next trade partner is Albania, which also started to be more interested in Ukrainian market last year. So Albanian agricultural producers start to be more interested in this market. Here we could see also diversified structure of goods, but as a free trade agreement has not been signed between Ukraine and Albania, despite the huge interest of Albanian side, are at competitive disadvantages with customs duty. And we have also two really small Western Balkans partners, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. Bosnia and Herzegovina has really a very small level of export and import, but very diverse, and they have really very interesting export and import groups here. But of course, we also don't have free trade agreement, and the smallest partner is Montenegro, which also is very diversified and interesting group of goods. And of course, all of those, we could say that all of those partners is small for Ukraine, and Ukraine also small partner for those Western Balkan countries. But for comparison, big Russia, as it pretends to be here, and for example in Serbia, and some countries like also Serbia do not want to impose sanctions, and now it's going to be much more difficult to trade with Russia. The Russian part is only 2.7% of goods from region, so it's a part of export. And these countries, Western Balkan countries, exported mostly pharmaceutical products to Russia, and this export is not under the sanctions, and still the reorientation of export, pharmaceutical goods export, should not be difficult. So the Western Balkans won't suffer much while being cut off from the Russian market by Western sanctions, but they could look to the Ukrainian market and to find it's really interesting for them. But also interesting that the only country in the region with noteworthy export of agricultural products to Russia was Serbia. First half of 2022 imported 253 million worth of vegetables and fruits from around the world, but not from the agriculture of Serbia. And if the terms of trade between our countries and political relations were favorable, Serbian farmers could enter the Ukrainian market in this period. And the main import from Russia in the region is, of course, gas, oil, copper, and aluminium. But these goods are the main import from Russia to all of most of the European countries. If European Union countries can find alternatives to Russian goods, other European countries, including EU candidate countries from the Western Balkans, can. About the energy sector, there are good perspectives for cooperation Ukraine and Western Balkan in the energy sector. After the war, we could export electricity, for example, to the Western Balkans because these countries do not have enough and couldn't produce enough electricity. So it's really it's really interesting, and it's really interesting market for us, and it's very useful for Western Balkan countries. And also we can list our gas storage facilities in Transcarpathia, just as Hungary does by providing Serbia with part of its gas storage facilities. Now Serbia wants to be like an energy hub in Balkans, so it's could be interesting for them to use also our facilities. And we could also alternative and renewable energy. And now non-EU Western Balkans countries have begun to switch to green energy. It's a slow process, but it's a very prospective process. Here we could share our knowledges, technologies, and experience, and they could be very useful. And this cooperation has already begun. For example, in Croatia, Ukrainian energy company, DTEC, have launched cooperation with the National Energy Company of Croatia a few years ago. So here we have really a lot of different ways how to cooperate in economic spheres, in trade, in transport sphere, in tourism. But unfortunately, most of the countries don't see perspectives, and they, because of less of knowledge, because political situation, not in Ukraine, not here in Western Balkans, countries don't see Ukraine. They see only big European countries, European Union, and their neighbors. But we are very close. We're still neighbors, so we have tried to develop our economic relation as well. Not only politicians, not only political relations, because economic, in every political situation, economics develop, and economic could influence the political situation to the authorities. So.